And like you said, when you run a business, whether it's a publicly traded business or whether it's a small business or whether it's a lemonade stand, you gotta know what the rules are when you start. And you hope if you build the plan around those rules, whatever rules those are, then you hope those stay in place for a long time, because then you can actually operate an entity.
One of the things that transitioning a little bit that we talked about last time and hinted at is elections, right? So
Yep.
It's an election year. In case anybody didn't notice, it will dominate the headlines and the news cycle. I mean, obviously with trials and things, that makes it even more of a front and center news cycle. But every time we have an election, I feel like we get the calls that say, okay, well, it's an election year. What's that mean for the markets? What if ABC guy gets elected or DEF? I mean, Republican, Democrat, current, new. What's it look like to the markets? And so we've used these charts a lot over the years because, elections happen every 4 years. And it's always a question, well, you favor one party over the other personally, and you think that if this doesn't go your way, then the market's going to just fall apart. And so one of the charts that we put up here right now is, essentially investing in the market only during an election year or a non-election year. And so what you can see is that overall from the market, this is just comparing between the election year, non-election years, they move pretty much the same. And so it's one of those things that it doesn't dictate or cause markets to react one way or another just because of it's an election. And we said over time too, markets are politically agnostic. They're not going to move one way or another drastically just because of a particular political party.
I think what you got here too, Kyle, what this is
Short term.
it's laying on is basically
Days
between
after
election
reaction.
and inauguration.
Yep.
Because I remember just in the last couple of elections, especially because they've been pretty polarizing, that if their candidate didn't get in, then they thought the world was going to end. There was going to be wars and pandemonium and everything crashing and oh my gosh. And then turns out when you compare it to non-election years, the other three, it's just the same.
I think that's kind of by design. Wish
Yeah.
people would figure that out.
But the last few elections, like you said, it's been more polarized. I know personally, I've had a number of clients calling in and, August wanting to know, hey, should I get out of the market now just in case so-and-so gets elected?
Right.
Yeah.
No. Did we put the chart in there that has the difference between the two long term? If you just invested during Republicans or just invested during Democrats?
Yeah. So
we put that one in there.
Yeah. So this is it right here.
Okay.
It's one of them. We have a number of them here, but this is going back. So, between the two, obviously, it does show that Democrats have had a little bit higher annualized return over the Republicans. But the more important number is, so what the chart's showing is if the red lines, if you just invested $10,000 when a Republican was in power, it goes to 77,000 value. Blue is in Democrat, it goes up to 405,000. But if you just stayed invested the entire time, regardless of which party was in power, you're getting an 8% annualized return. And that $10,000 is, $3.1 million over that period of time. Mm-hmm. And so, again, it goes back
So you're out of the market 4 years.
Yeah, exactly. You're in the market out forward. I guess it depends on what time period and, if it's, back-to-back elections. But, yeah, bottom line is it's really hard to time the market. And it's always the amount of time that you get to spend and invest in the market that seems to add those levels of returns versus trying to get in or out. And if you're going to miss 4 years or 8 years of a market, usually not going to be favorable.
Yeah. And there's so much too that, the political party in charge in the White House has so little to do with market performance. It's so overstated that, like this, Democrats have done better. A lot of these decisions they're making don't have effects for, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And so they make a decision, they, pass a bill, whatever, go a certain direction, and then take the credit for the next 6 months. It's actually ridiculous. So again, back to our point that whoever's in power, I do believe that elections have consequences. I am a believer in that. I do think that over the course of a long period of time, you will see those consequences shake out, but not over a 4-year period where that person's in charge.
And what this chart doesn't show, and I wish we had the other one up right now, but it does show times when it's not this one, but I didn't put it in there. But
okay,
when it's Republican or Democrat president, and then what the makeup of Congress is, right?
Yeah.
So, because again, the president is just one branch of
person.
government, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if it's a split government between a Democrat and Republican-controlled Congress or vice versa, those scenarios the market actually has done better than one party controls all three branches of government.
Yep.
The system is designed to be gridlocked.
Correct.
Everybody gets frustrated with gridlock, but the real design around it is so
for
that
sure.
things don't just get pushed through easily.
Less government.
Not just less government, but certainly
Regulation.
checks and balances, constant checks and balances. And the design is that the branches and the parties are gonna bicker and do these things, and so we don't just get wholesale rule changes right away.
Yeah.
At when the wind changes. Oh, okay. Well, we're changing and we're doing this over here. Well, somebody needs to check that or balance that. And I when I see people complain about gridlock. I see that as that's really the way system's supposed to work. That's what
Absolutely.
you're watching that happen, and it's ugly. It's always ugly, but that's really the way it's supposed to be.
Well, I said too before with regards to a business, right? If you're building a business or running a business and you're trying to have a business plan and a 5-year business plan, and you have one party in control, and there's going to be constant change because they can do more than they could if it was divided government.
Yes.
It makes it really hard to have a 5-year plan, not knowing what changes are going to come through.
Right.
Whereas if it's gridlock, like you mentioned, less gets done. It's a lot easier to be
And
efficient
rules
plan.
don't change
Right.
often. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. And like you said, when you run a business, whether it's a publicly traded business or whether it's a small business or whether it's a lemonade stand, you gotta know what the rules are when you start. And you hope if you build the plan around those rules, whatever rules those are, then you hope those stay in place for a long time, because then you can actually operate an entity.
And one other thing I'll just throw out there too is, historically speaking, in election years, with the exception of about 4, they have been positive, and usually those 4 are significant, right? It's financial crisis,
Right.
It's .com. I mean, they're major events that occurred. So again, because whether you're party in control, you're trying to keep things even keel as much as you can to increase your odds or favorability. So markets tend to be a little more stable and historically positive in election years. Not every time, not guaranteed. I'm just saying historically, with the exception of about 4 times, election years have been positive for the overall markets.